How do you think? I mean, like, it's easy to say, well, based on what we saw last year, Brock is more advanced than Trey. But now we kind of know that the Niners are likely to play week one with Trey Lance and not Brock Purdy. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be one of those things where Trey, it doesn't matter how Trey plays, and the Niners will go back to Brock based on the fact that he ran the table at the end of the year, won 2 playoff games? Or is there a level in your mind that Trey could play at the beginning of next year that would make the 49ers say, you know what? We like Brock, but we're going with Trey.
That's a really complicated question, especially to ask right now. We're so far away from knowing exactly, because even Trey, right? We're still he's just ramping up. He's just starting to throw. We're still a little bit away from him being healthy. But projecting all the way down there, I do think that if the 49ers, start the season and let's say Brock Purdy is not fully healthy week one and they, activate him like week two, week three, but they're 3-0 and everything is looking good. And maybe, Trey Lance isn't absolutely lighting it up and killing it. But I think it's completely reasonable to see like him improving through those 3 weeks. I don't know how well he's going to play. I'm not going to give a projection of that. Let's see how he recovers in this offseason goes. But I do think it's a fair projection to say now in those 3 weeks, like week one might be so-so, but week three might be really good. There could be an improvement, a steady improvement that we're seeing through then. I think if we're at that point, especially given the nature of the injury and given that Brock Purdy wouldn't have gone through the offseason, I do think, Larry, that there's a chance Trey Lance could, maintain a stronghold on the job. It's the same situation that Purdy kind of walked into, where they have nobody else. You get the shot. They're playing a little bit with house money. And if you play great, you can take hold of the job. And Purdy did that, and then he got hurt. I feel like Lance has the same exact opportunity. I don't think 7 games buys Brock Purdy the equity to come back and start even if Trey Lance is out there absolutely killing it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think very highly of Brock, but you know, it's very difficult. Difficult's the wrong word. It's very it to me, you never look away from the bird in the hand.
Right.
If you have a quarterback that you're winning games with, that's playing well, you don't switch jockeys. You don't switch. And I'm a big believer in Brock. But if Trey comes out and plays great in week one, he's getting a start in week two. And if he plays great in week two, he's getting the start in week three. And if he plays great in week three, you see what I'm saying? If he continues to play great, I think that he keeps the job. So the same way Brock was given an opportunity, Trey has been given an opportunity. That all being said, does today's news of the surgery for Brock not being a 12-month thing or a 9-month thing, that we're thinking it's more along 6 months, does that change your opinion about the third quarterback in that room? Like, in my opinion, I think that they now have flexibility. If they like
Yeah.
a veteran, go for it. But if you prefer a rookie, you can go that route and spend your cap savings that you were going to spend on Baker Mayfield or Andy Dalton or somebody else, and go spend it on a defensive end or a corner or a safety. What is this news today make you more likely to want? First of all, I never even really asked you. Do you prefer a veteran or do you prefer a rookie as that third quarterback? And does this news today change that?
I want both. So to answer the
You want
first
four?
part of your question, I want both. Have them compete. Add competition to that third quarterback room. The exact way Brock Purdy and Nate Sudfeld competed. Get another, marginal kind of fringe backup, can maybe play in a pinch, but really a backup type guy that's very, very cheap, whoever that is on the market, whether it's a Jared Stidham, somebody like that, and draft a quarterback in the 6th round, 7th round, whoever you like, draft him. And you can always stash one of those guys on the practice squad, and let them compete for the third quarterback job. And plus, they need 3 quarterbacks, I think, in camp, because Brock Purdy is not looked at as a quarterback in camp, and they need 3 healthy arms to divvy up the reps. So I'd assume they have to do both. So that answers the first part of your question. Um, the second part of your question in regards to did I think the plan changed? I did not, because I was never necessarily a fan of getting Baker Mayfield, because I think Baker Mayfield would cost $8 to $10 million. And I didn't think that, given where the 49ers are with the quarterback room, I didn't think it made sense to spend money on the quarterback room unless they were spending on a proven commodity. And to me, Baker Mayfield, I actually like Baker Mayfield. I like Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma. I did not think he should have been the first pick in the draft, but I think there's some talent to Baker Mayfield that's pretty good, and he could still succeed. But at the same time, Larry, I don't think the 49ers need Baker Mayfield. I was pretty contented with going into the season with these two young guys and getting the cheapest possible veteran to back them up and draft a different guy. So I don't think the plan necessarily changes. I was just always confused why this was never the plan, regardless of what happened to Brock's surgery, because I always felt like with Trey Lance, like, there was no reason to bail on whatever plan you had with him. Whatever plan you had with him that never came into fruition last year, you didn't get off that plan because Trey Lance sucked, or Trey Lance did something off the field, or Trey Lance was whoever you didn't want him to be. He just broke his ankle. And now you're coming back to a situation where if Brock Purdy was healthy, Larry, I would have completely understood why Trey Lance is the backup, because Brock Purdy was that awesome down the stretch of the season. But since he wasn't, I always felt like, why not just resume your plan with Trey Lance, because that's the cheapest and best value option for the 49ers. They were the ones talking about, well, John Lynch was saying during the combine, right? You and I had a long talk about all his different answers regarding Trey Lance. But to me, this should have always been the plan. And I hope now that they think Brock Purdy is going to be back in 6 months and ready to go and possibly ready to start at some point next year, they stick with that plan, because I think financially that's easily the most responsible and the best value they have at the quarterback position, and the most potential.
Who is John Lynch calls Vish Kumaran? Okay. It's quite the scenario. He says, Vish's parents, is Vish there? Can I talk to him? And then they say, yes, he's right here, John. And they hand you the phone. And he says, Vish, love your work on the Krueg show. Love your channel. You guys are blowing it up. I think you're wise. You've got great wisdom. I'm just bullshitting. If John Lynch comes to you and says, Vish, who is your number one choice to be the third quarterback? Because I think we're both of the same mindset that third quarterback is not going to be just a throwaway guy anymore. Heck, there were people, Vish, in July that when I said I like Brock Purdy, were like, if they got to lean on the third string quarterback, they're cooked anyway, right? And that's kind of a prevailing wisdom. And I know around football, and then maybe this year with the Niners changed the thinking, and maybe the NFL is going to change their rules to accommodate a third quarterback being on the roster. That all being said, we don't have any definitive answers on that yet. Who would you say is your number one choice? You can have anybody, veteran, you can make a trade, rookie, anything. Who is, you got Brock, you got Trey, who's your, and to me, it really does matter about who the other guys are. Every room's different. Who's the ideal third quarterback to put in that room in your mind?
Yeah, so I'm going to go draft. Personally, I don't want them to use one of the third round or fourth round or fifth round picks on a quarterback. Personally, Krug, I think there's other needs, and there's a lot of depth in a lot of different positions that I would love the 49ers to just stock up on a lot of young players that could possibly develop into starters, maybe not, but I would love to stock up depth. So if you're talking 6th, 7th round there, and I'd prefer to go to the draft because of the cheaper option, obviously, especially because I don't know about you, Larry, but I think the idea that the Heineke's and the Gardner Minshews and the Andy Daltons and the Baker Mayfields are going to be cheap, I'm not necessarily buying that of right now. I think those guys are going to be closer to 10 million than they are to be 5 million. That's just my guess, just based on the spot track projections and all of that. And I don't want the 49ers to spend that much money on a quarterback. Maximum, I'm hoping, is the same $2.5 million guaranteed they spent on Nate Sudfeld. And every one of the guys I just named is, at least $5-6 million better than Nate Sudfeld. So while we're on this, I actually, and this is a guy I like, the UCLA quarterback,
Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Right. Tons of starts in college. I thought he improved significantly. I remember watching him just on college football a couple years back and didn't think he was very good, to be honest. Then I was just watching him randomly during draft time right now, and I thought he was not too bad. He's pretty athletic. He moves well. He has a really quick release. He's not a very accurate thrower down the field, but he's quite accurate short, intermediate. He has tons of starts, tons of experience. And then I was listening to Jordan Palmer do an interview with Rich Eisen, and he singled out DTR as a guy that he felt was going to surprise people because of the intangibles. He said the maturity and all of that is off the charts with DTR, and he said his arm is going to catch up, is going to surprise some people on how strong it is. And so when I heard those two things, Larry, I thought that, kind of fits the mold of what the 49ers are looking for. They did meet with him, and it seems like there is some interest there. So if we're talking about, I don't look, Larry, I don't know if they can draft him and he would actually come in, actually consume this offense and win the third quarterback job. That's a different story. But a guy I would like to get the opportunity to compete for it would be him. He would be a guy I would like for them to take in the later rounds. And I think it's because he has the potential to be like a Tyrod Taylor, Tyler Huntley kind of player. And I think having the potential to be a fringe starter like that, Larry, in your third quarterback is huge because the guy has to have some talent, right? He can't just be a locker room guy because I think both of us agree there might be a need for this guy to play. So he has to have some level of starter talent. And this guy does with his athleticism and arm strength. It's going to give him a chance to maybe be again, Tyler Huntley, Tyrod Taylor type player.
I'll say rookie over veteran because I really think they need to spend their money on other areas. And then I'll say I'm going to go with, I agree we're kind of thinking along the same lines in that we both are going rookie, but we're also both not going day one or day two. And we're really even not talking about an early day three guy.
No.
We're both talking about a late day three guy. I think the two guys that I would choose from, and I like Clayton Tune, I really do, and I like Jake Hayner. I've seen some good things about Jaron Hall and Tanner McKee and Max Duggan, but I think for me,
Stetson Bennett.
I want one of two things.
Okay.
I want somebody who can play right away, but at the same time, I don't want Shanahan to pick that player over Trey Lance. So I don't want somebody who can really step in front of Trey. I want somebody who's definitively behind Purdy and Trey. So I'm choosing between either Stetson Bennett from Georgia, who's, underwhelming. I don't think if he can make all the throws. He's 5'11". But
did you watch him throw at the combine, Krug?
Yeah, he looked great, didn't he? I mean,
he
dropped it in the bucket.
Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely. He made some perfect throws. I mean,
he looked
really
unbelievable throwing it, and he looked like he had. I did not expect. I'm not going to pretend like I sit here and watch a lot of Stetson Bennett. I've watched a lot of Georgia over the past couple of years, thanks to every single player ever to even play one snap on their defense being projected to go in the first or second round over the last 2 years. But I didn't expect him to throw that way. Like, it wasn't just the deep ball, right? The deep ball was outstanding, dropped it in the bucket, all three. Those were highlight throws. But even the outs, everything, he was throwing with pace. He was throwing with velocity. He looked good. He looked good throwing the ball in the combine.
He made himself some money. There's no doubt. He looked good. And he's smallish, but he's played on the national championship winning team. He's played in a conference where you've got the greatest defensive speed in all of college football. Football we know is important to him. The guy absolutely was a phenomenal leader for the Georgia Bulldog offense.
Right.
But I'm going to go either with Stetson Bennett, who is more polished and ready to go, but also low upside. I think my guess is Stetson Bennett's going to be a 6th round pick.
Okay.
If you said what round, I say round 6. I think the Niners have other needs that are more pressing. And I want, if Brock's going to be healthy in September, and you have Trey Lance, I want one of those two guys to play. So as much as I like Clayton Tune and some of these other guys, I want somebody a little bit further down the list. So I'm going to say either Stetson Bennett, and I'm back on Malik Cunningham from Louisville. And I just love the way Cunningham runs. I love the way he still has a good arm. I like the way he threw the ball in Indy. I've had a number of different quarterback people tell me, people that have evaluated it said, he's not an NFL quarterback. But to me, there's zip on his passes. You have to account for him in the run game. He's dynamic. He's truly a dynamic mover. And I just think that, the Niners offensive line is not the best. Now you're going to be replacing 2 of the 5 starters. And I don't want Kyle Shanahan to put this third quarterback in over Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. And I think there's a chance if you have DTR or Stetson Bennett or Clayton Tune or Max Duggan, somebody like that, there's a chance that if Trey struggled early and Brock wasn't ready, that Shanahan would put that other player in. I don't want that
because
to happen.
They played so much, you're basically saying?
Yeah, or maybe they played well in a brief sample size in the preseason or in practice. I want there to be a clear delineation between 1 and 2, 2 and 1, as far as Brock and Trey are 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. And this third guy is not like, well, he could be a 2. He could. No, I don't want any debate. I want the third guy to be the third guy. And that's why I like either Bennett or Cunningham. I guess I would go with Bennett if I felt like I needed that guy to start games and win games. But now with Purdy being healthy, I don't really think the third guy's got to start games and win games. I think the third guy's got to be able to come in if the first 2 guys aren't there and try to salvage something. And I like the high level arm strength and movement ability of Malik Cunningham. So I'm going to say the Niners now with the compensatory selections have 4 7th-round picks. In my ideal world, they're bypassing the veterans and they're drafting Malik Cunningham with maybe that last 7th-round pick, because I think he's going to be there. I think he's probably headed towards undrafted free agent status. And
I haven't studied him, so I don't know.
And I would probably take him with my last 7th-round pick. There's other guys I like. Aiden O'Connell comes out of a good offense. Adrian Martinez is a good athlete. I like Tanner McKee, but some of those guys I think go earlier. But in the round 7, I think you're looking at Stetson Bennett, maybe DTR, maybe Malik Cunningham. Maybe I'm round 6, round 7, and I just think I'd rather wait and invest in other positions and go grab Malik Cunningham, at the very end of the 7th round, and then just coach him up. And if you got to go to him, at least you have a guy who can really, really run. I mean, we're not talking about he's just mobile. This guy will burn you if you give him an avenue, he'll burn you for a 60, 70-yard run. I mean, he's dynamic. He's a dynamic runner. He's not Lamar, but he's a dynamic runner.
So I think you and I completely aligned there, right, in the logic. We're thinking a 6th, 7th-round pick, a DTR, Stetson Bennett. We're right there. But there's something I'm not letting go, because I do got to ask you this. Why should we be worried about a late-round pick beating out Trey Lance? I don't think that should be necessarily a thing that should be thought about here. I think it's an indictment on Trey Lance, in fact, if Shanahan believes a DTR or somebody like that can come in right away and outplay him. He's played 2 years in the system. He was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. I don't think that he needs to be coddled or protected necessarily in that way. And all he's asked for is a chance to compete. He hasn't asked for that. But I don't understand because he would be it's not just Larry that, he's more talented than whoever would be coming in with the 6th or 7th round pick. He's also way ahead because he's played in the system for 2 years, and he was the 3rd overall pick in the draft, and he was projected to be a starter the year before. I would not worry about his feelings at all. If I thought a guy could start with the 6th, 7th round pick, like a DTR, like a Stetson Bennett, especially DTR, if I think he has talent to start, I'm taking that 100% out of 100%. I'm not worried if he comes in and outplays Trey Lance. That's on Trey Lance to make sure that he outplays DTR or whomever. He was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. He has been in this system for 2 different years. He was about to start the year before. This is his opportunity. He has to take advantage and capitalize.
No question.